If you were to look at the official imperial records of the Japanese Kwantung Army during the 1930s and 40s, you would find a vast, heavily funded facility operating in the Pingfong district of Harbin, Manchuria, operating under a remarkably benevolent name, the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. To the outside world, this massive 6 square kilometer complex was dedicated to public health, supposedly working tirelessly to provide clean drinking water to soldiers and protect populations from the ravages of infectious diseases. But behind its high brick walls and electrified fences lay a secret so monstrous and so deliberately calculated that it rivals the darkest nightmares ever conceived by human minds. Within this black site, which would come to be known simply by its military designation as Unit 731, the researchers did not refer to their patients as human beings. Instead, they used the chilling code word Maruta, which translates directly to logs, treating men, women, and children not as people, but as raw, disposable timber to be chopped apart in the pursuit of absolute biological supremacy. This is the factual, horrific story of the most evil scientific facility in human history and the terrifying reality that the men who ran it were never brought to justice. To understand how such an industrial-scale slaughterhouse could exist, you have to look at its primary architect, Surgeon General Shiro Ishii, a brilliant but ruthlessly sociopathic medical officer who believed that biological warfare was the ultimate key to Japanese global domination. Ishii argued fiercely that if international treaties like the 1925 Geneva Protocol specifically banned the use of biological and chemical weapons, it must be because those weapons were incredibly effective, and he demanded the resources to develop them before the rest of the world could catch up. Following the Japanese invasion of Manchuria, Ishii was granted unprecedented funding and absolute autonomy, allowing him to construct the Pingfong facility in 1939, a sprawling metropolis of death that contained hundreds of buildings, an airfield, a massive incinerator, and a prison block specifically designed to hold up to 400 human subjects at any given time. This was not a rogue operation run by a madman in a basement. It was an officially sanctioned, highly organized military apparatus staffed by over 3,000 personnel, including some of Japan's most elite university-educated doctors and scientists. The victims dragged into the bowels of Unit 731 were primarily Chinese civilians, Soviet prisoners of war, and anti-Japanese partisans who were rounded up by the military police and delivered to the facility in unmarked, blacked-out train cars. Once inside, they were stripped of their names, assigned a number, and subjected to experiments that defy all bounds of medical ethics and human empathy. Because Ishii and his researchers wanted to observe the raw, uncompromised progression of lethal diseases, they routinely infected healthy prisoners with weaponized strains of bubonic plague, cholera, anthrax, and syphilis, monitoring their agonizing decline. But the horror did not stop at observation. To see the effects of these diseases on internal organs without the interference of tissue decomposition, the surgeons of Unit 731 performed vivisections, opening the chests and abdomens of infected living prisoners without the use of any anesthesia whatsoever, claiming that painkillers would skew their precious scientific data. The researchers also engaged in extensive frostbite experiments to prepare the military for winter combat against the Soviets, dragging prisoners outside into the freezing Manchurian winter, forcing them to submerge their bare limbs in ice water and waiting until their arms and legs froze so solid that they sounded like blocks of wood when struck with a cane. Once frozen, the scientists would test various methods of rapid thawing, often resulting in the flesh peeling completely off the bone, leaving the victims to endure imaginable agony before being disposed of in the compound's massive incinerators. All of this unfathomable suffering was dedicated to one primary goal: creating the perfect biological weapon, which Shiro Ishii achieved through mass breeding of infected rat fleas contained within specially designed porcelain bombs that would break open mid-air to rain pestilence down upon the enemy. In the early 1940s, Unit 731 field-tested these apocalyptic weapons on the civilian populations of Chinese cities like Ningbo and Chengde, dropping wheat and rice mixed with plague-infected fleas, triggering devastating artificial epidemics that slaughtered hundreds of thousands of innocent men, women, and children. Their success emboldened the military to the point of absolute madness, leading to the formulation of Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night, a horrifying, finalized plan scheduled for late September of 1945, which involved sending submarine-launched aircraft to drop plague-infected fleas directly over the city of San Diego, California. Had this mission been executed, it would have unleashed a biological apocalypse on American soil, but history violently intervened when the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945, forcing Japan's sudden surrender and narrowly averting the biological strike. As Soviet troops closed in on Manchuria in the final days of the war, Shiro Ishii ordered the absolute destruction of Unit 731, blowing up the buildings, executing every remaining prisoner to silence the witnesses, and fleeing back to Japan with his most prized possession, the meticulous, blood-soaked data collected from years of human torture. And it is here that the story of Unit 731 takes its most infuriating and morally bankrupt turn. When the American occupation forces under General Douglas MacArthur discovered the existence of this biological warfare program, they did not arrest Ishii and his scientists for war crimes. Instead, recognizing that this horrific human data could never legally be replicated by Western scientists in the dawn of the Cold War, the United States government made a deal with the devil. In exchange for the exclusive rights to the biological research and the guarantee that the data would be kept out of the Soviet hands, Shiro Ishii and the butchers of Unit 731 were granted absolute sweeping immunity from prosecution by the US government. Unlike the Nazi doctors at Nuremberg who faced the gallows for their crimes against humanity, the architects of Unit 731 returned to civilian life, many going on to become prominent politicians, university professors, and wealthy pharmaceutical executives in post-war Japan. Shiro Ishii died peacefully of throat cancer in his own bed in 1959 at the age of 67, having spent no single day in a prison cell, leaving behind a legacy of absolute horror that reminds us of the terrifying lengths to which humanity will go and the justice it is willing to sacrifice in the name of power.